According to studies in 2019, over 20% of Americans suffer from mental illness. In the wake of COVID 19, these increased tremendously. Drug addiction, alcoholism, and suicide is at an all time high, and that's why I've set out on a mission to create awareness about the importance of mental health. I'm Janae Lopez, a pre doctoral clinical psychology student, and welcome to Mental Health Matters on Mental Health Mondays.
I see ghosts, y'all. I see ghosts.
What happens to all of us, man?
Oh, you seen them too?
Yeah.
Dad come to you at night. Storm and Norm comes to me damn near every night. Now he talked to you like he talked to me.
Come on.
I don't think so.
Come on. Fist up.
Get in there, David. Get in there. Put your fist up, David. Come on. Go, you two there. Go ahead. Fist up, man.
Come on, Paul.
Let's.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Mental Health Mondays with Janae. Thank you for tuning in and joining us today. We have some exciting young men here with us today. I kind of titled today's blog in, I guess, remembrance of some of the things we see, some of the things we don't see, and some of the things we try to hide, but often thinking about the men and the women who come out of military service as well. So with that being said, today's title is about strength and resilience and survival, but at what cost, right? So at what cost do we have all of those things? And I am honored to have Dr. Christopher Williams and his fellow veteran friends here today. So Dr. Christopher Williams is a native New Orleanian, born and raised in the Ninth Ward, and a proud alumni of the New Orleans public school system. He himself is a veteran, retired from the U.S. Army after 31 years as a Chief Warrant Officer 4. And he has also been a part of the law enforcement community, serving on both the federal and local level as a police officer, police sergeant, police commander, director of public safety, and chief of police, just to name a few. If you guys read this man's bio, you'd be like, I can't include all of that in there, right? But now he's recently retired as a project manager for the Department of Veterans Affairs at the VA hospital in New Orleans. And here we are today. So welcome. And if you will, why don't you tell us who you brought along for this journey today?
Well, thank you, Janae. I appreciate the accolades. Matter of fact, that was the best introduction I've heard about myself since I've been living. I was kind of saying, who is she talking about?
You.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna let them introduce themselves because these guys are phenomenal. These guys both served in the military. I mean, one is a warrant officer as well, and the other one is a staff person who really I used to look up to, still do look up to, because he's one of them airborne trooper kind of guys that just jump out an airplane, for nothing. But I'm gonna let them introduce themselves. But just to let you know, look, these are my best friends. We served together, we played together, we bounce everything off of one another. And most importantly, we endured some of the same things, just being, military veterans. So with
Mhm.
that being said, Malcolm, introduce yourself.
Sure, I will. Thank you for having me on.
Of
Uh,
course. Thank you for joining us.
yes, thank you, Janae. I appreciate you reaching out to veterans. I'll say that at first. Uh, First, I'd like to say thanking God for all that we have and all that I do. I do it in honor of Him, and I don't want to make Him. I want to make Him proud of me in everything that I do.
Mhm.
So He's first in my life. Um, I am a New Orleans native as well, in the Ninth Ward. Went to the same high school as Christopher Williams and Edward Parker. We had our own little group. Wasn't nothing as a gang, but we call ourselves the CB4L, Cool Breeze for Life.
I love it. I love
That's, that was us in high school. Everybody knew us by that. We were what you would call the smart guys.
it.
Weren't really nerds, but we were the smart guys. Every teacher loved us. We couldn't do no wrong, and we were there to help people. So everybody, and we were funny. We all made jokes a lot. So that's our collective thing. And there's two other guys with us that are not here today. Both are also veterans. So for me personally, graduated in top 10 of my class. I was number 3. I attended ROTC in high school as well for 3 years. So I knew then I wanted to be in the military then. I really enjoyed it. I liked the discipline. My mom, she loved it because she saw that I was learning what she was teaching me at home. I was able to put it into effect in the military, in ROTC. So I am, I have 6 sisters, 1 brother. My mom had 8 children that she raised alone. I was the second to the youngest, so everybody said she spoiled me, but she really didn't.
Oh, you were the baby.
Yeah, I was the second to the baby boy, but I wasn't spoiled at all. I couldn't do nothing. Every party that my friends got to go to, I couldn't go because she was scared something was going to happen to me. So consequently, I had to sneak out sometimes. So that was the only way I got out most of the time. My good friend Christopher and Edward and another one, they all taught me how to swim because I didn't know how to swim. My mama never let me go. So they took me to the deepest, the 12 feet, taught me how to swim.
Wow.
And I was grateful for that. So we all went to Upper Bound together. After high school, we decided all to go to the military together, although Edward went in before all of us, but we decided to do a buddy system. I couldn't go, my mom wouldn't let me go. I was too young to say, go to college. You got a scholarship, go do it. So I had to do that. In those years, I was a meat cutter at Swagman's in Gentilly.
Oh, wow. That's a throwback store.
It is. So yeah, I was a meat cutter there, where I, was able to, teach some of my people what type of meats to buy and not to buy, based on what I learned there. After that, my high school sweetheart, we had a son. After that, we got married. I decided, okay, I can't stay here any longer. I need to provide for my family and do something better here. So I decided to join the military in 1988. And I did 25 years. While I was an NCO. Always excelled at everything I did. Decided to move on to a warrant officer. I reached the CW4 as well. I was only a warrant officer to ever command a unit. With over about 600 people. I enjoyed it. I was the best person for the job. I deployed over 7 times. I was in Israel, Saudi Arabia 3 times, Kuwait 3 times. Excuse me. I picked a lot of lives, helped a lot of people. And then I decided to retire out after President Obama said he was going to do a drawdown. I said, okay, it's time to go. So I retired.
That was my cue.
Yeah, that was my cue. So I said, okay, I'm out. But it was the best thing that happened to me when I look back on it, because I had 1 daughter left in high school. She was in the 10th grade. I was able to be with her 10th, 11th, and 12th grade. And I made sure she did all the right things. She got a scholarship for volleyball. So that interaction that I had with her was pivotal for me because while I was in the military, I lost out on a lot of their lives. The kids, the other three, I lost out a lot of their growing up and all that stuff because I was gone a lot. But for her, me getting out of the military then was the best thing that ever happened to me. So here now I'm retired, 100% disabled veteran, not unemployed. I do what I like to do, what I want to do. I appreciate basketball, volleyball, and baseball. And, I'm in the business of servitude to elderly most of all, because I had an auntie that I took care of who was elderly. She was alone and elderly, so I did everything for her. I had my friends, Christopher would help me out because she was in New Orleans, and I currently reside in Dallas, Texas.
Okay. Awesome. I love this story. I love this story.
Thank you.
Mr. Edward Parker, you get the pleasure of introducing yourself at this point.
After you unmute yourself.
No, I'm not muted.
Edward, not you. Edward.
Oh, Edward Parker.
Yes.
Yeah, so look at the bottom of the screen and you should be able to click the microphone to unmute yourself.
No need to talk because we can't hear you. There we go.
You was talking pig Latin? That boy was talking pig Latin.
Well, Janae, good afternoon. And first of all, thank you for giving my good friend Christopher an opportunity to share his life with all of us. And I really appreciate that. In a lot of ways, our lives are very similar. And then there were some twists and turns that took us down different paths. As Malcolm said earlier, my name is Edward Parker, and we all grew up pretty much close to each other in the Lower Ninth Ward in the Desire Housing Project. We all went to high school together. And as Malcolm said, we all attended Upward Bound at the University of New Orleans. I joined the Army before those guys, not because my mom thought it was okay, but because my girlfriend at the time became pregnant. So I knew that working at the corner store as a butcher at Busy Bee was not going to cut it.
I can understand that.
My mother made it very clear that we were going to have to do something, and we were going to have to do something fast. So naturally, right after high school, we graduated in May of '83, and July the 14th, 1983, I was gone. And what's remarkable about that day, my son was born on July 13th in Charity Hospital. So the very next day, I left. Number one, I didn't know that we can try to ask for any type of extension or anything like that. So when it was time to go, it was time to go. So in 1983, I left. And I was in the military for 13 years. I wanted to stay in the military and retire because I absolutely enjoyed it. It gave me a good foundation. I met a lot of new friends, was able to go places that I had never been before. But Malcolm mentioned a key word when President Obama mentioned drawdown. I was actually a victim of a drawdown before, when Bill Clinton was president, and I was forced out of the military in 1996. And I have to tell you, Janae, it was devastating for a number of reasons. I had not gone to college. I had, I guess at that time, if I recall, but don't quote me on this, I think we had 6 children. We may have had more because now we have a total of 9. So I don't know what the number was back then, but if you could imagine the transition, having to get out forcibly and make an adjustment and adapt into the civilian life without a college degree was quite difficult. But I enjoyed my time. I was very, very, very bitter when I got out. I absolutely hated the government. I didn't like the Army. I didn't want to be affiliated with it. I told my wife, if I died, don't accept anything from the government whatsoever. No casket, no flag, no nothing. However, I had to be buried. A box or whatever was fine with me. I wanted nothing from the government because I thought it was very wrong in the way in which that I was forced out. But enough about that. I enjoyed the time while I was in. I got out in '96. I worked in a number of different places. Worked in the school system when I first got home. Worked in hospitality. Worked in law enforcement for a little while. And then, of course, Hurricane Katrina hit. Then it forced me here to Texas. I decided to go to school here. My wife and I went to school together. We got associate's degree at a community college. I tried the University of Houston. That didn't work. And today we own our own business. It's called Angels on the Move, ANGELZ on the Move. And we're growing and we're excited about it. So,
well, I can't wait to hear more about that, right? This part of your process of being able to transition from maybe a period of time where you thought maybe the military was the only option, right?
Right.
And going through the military and then that forcible transition, and likely that being very like traumatic. And then in a sense of then you go through Hurricane Katrina, and that's traumatic in and of itself, which can bring up a lot of emotions and feelings that you may have previously felt before.
Right.
So yeah, I'm excited about this. I can't wait to get into this. And I think one of the biggest things for me is being able to one, be vulnerable myself in this process. But then also being able to provide a safe space for those who join me on this journey, and understanding that this is a very open and candid conversation. You are welcome to be as vulnerable and open as you please. You know, if there is something you're like, I don't want to talk about, please don't. You know, if there are things you are willing to share, please do, by all means. You know, in doing this, you know, we all have our areas of expertise, right? And so veterans and the military and you know, that understanding that transition and that adjustment and the sacrifices is not really my area, right? But I thought, you know, given the platform that I've put myself on, that it's important to talk about it, because there are many veterans, many veteran families out there that I think need to be able to hear from the perspective of someone who has been in it, has been through it, is overcoming it. So yeah. So I kind of know a little bit about y'all now, but I kind of like to start off just kind of ease our way in there. So just for fun, you know, in talking to Malcolm earlier, you know, he told me he liked to travel and dance a lot. So I'm thinking that that's probably like one of your hobbies and passions and stuff like that. So, you know, a lot of times people want to know who you are, right, as a person, and not, you know, and get to know like who you've become and how this story has created. So what is your hobby or passion or purpose? What's that for you guys?
Well, I can tell you right now, mine is not dancing. Okay. I like to dance, but I don't know how to dance. So let's get that. Let's be open and honest right off the bat. I absolutely love it because I see what it does for him on the dance floor. The activity, the exercise, the company, the people that brings, I mean, it's just, dancing is universal. Yep. And I get it. You can kind of move to the beat of your own drum. But if your drum beat is different than the other 50 people on the floor, there's a problem. And
You're
I'm
like,
the
maybe
one.
That's not for me.
Maybe that's not for me. So, but with regards to passion, it has changed throughout different stages of my life. So I'll tell you right now what I'm most passionate about. My wife and I are members of a prayer group on the phone where we meet Monday through Saturday, 5:15 in the morning, roughly till about 8 o'clock. There are two prayer lines, prayer line number 1 and prayer line number 2. My mother-in-law has been asking me to be a part of this for years. I always shunned away from it because I just didn't feel like it was my time. But within the last, I would say, year or so, we tried it and we liked it. And now on Tuesdays and Wednesdays, my wife and I moderate the second line where we bring a devotion. And it's been wonderful. It's helped us to grow closer in our relationship with the Lord. And it gives us a sense of purpose. What I like most about it, Janae, is we're able to come together, fellowship with the people on the line, most of whom we've never seen before. They're as far north as Chicago, Illinois, as far west, I think, as California. Of course, a lot of them are in New Orleans and Atlanta, but this really brings us joy. It's something that we look forward to. So at the same time, we study together to learn the word, and it's refreshing. It's a breath of fresh air. We're empty nesters for the most part. All of our kids are grown. My youngest he'll be 19 on Friday.
Oh, wow.
And
Happy
he's
early
home.
birthday to him.
Thank you. He's home for the summer. And then he'll be going back to SFA for his second year. And I still have 2 that are apparently not going anywhere ever. So they're still here at home, and I think they'll be here for a long time. But that's our passion right now, connecting with the prayer line every morning. We really look forward to that. And the other thing, of course, is to try to do everything that we can to grow our business.
Love it. Love, love, love it. Okay.
So Janae, I would say that my hobbies are, at one time I used to like chess a lot.
Okay.
I move away from the chess to golf.
Ah.
So I love golf, but most importantly, I love traveling. And finally, I just love family.
Mm.
You know, I like spending a lot of time with my family. And most importantly, I have daughters. You know, I have a older son who now works for Columbia and Sony Records. So he's out the house, graduated from college, and he comes home every often. And I don't have to give him anything, and he comes home bearing gifts sometime, which is incredible.
Right. I'm sure. I'm sure. You're like, parents like gifts too.
Yep.
And then I have my oldest, who's 20. She attends LSU. She's coming into her junior year. And then I have a 17-year-old who wants everything and is not given enough because the 15-year-old gets more and the 20-year-old gets to do what she wants. So,
she's caught in the middle.
There you go. Little girl syndrome.
Right.
But I love watching them grow up. You know, my thing is to catapult them into being young ladies and, you know, just teaching them morals and values and just letting them know that they got to do the right thing when it comes to society. You know? Now, how does that look in the midst of the United States? It varies.
Definitely does.
It varies because, yes, we do have to have that talk about equality.
Absolutely.
Skin color, you know, versus other people's skin colors. Why, you know, I'm being treated this way. And, you know, sometimes for a parent, it's difficult, you know, to explain that to the younger one, specifically when you have served your country, you know, consider that you've done all you can and that you shouldn't be judged, you know, by the content of your color. So, but yes, that's what I enjoy, you know, family, and most importantly, I have 6 good friends. Just 2 of them here. These guys I will go the distance for. These guys, we take vacations, they're just like family.
Yes.
When I push hard because of them.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, I'm that one person in my family that everybody depends on.
Mm.
That legal advisor that everybody called, from the nephews to the aunts to the cousins to the friends who know my cousin, call my uncle. So I'm that guy, and sometimes it gets frustrating, but I'm glad I'm that guy to point them in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Hmm. Okay.
So is it my turn?
Yes, it is your turn.
Okay, I thought so I got to redo. Okay, so yes, my passion is servitude, helping people however I can.
Mm.
I have 3 grandchildren that I like to instill some of the values that I wasn't able to do in my own kid's life on a daily basis because of the military. So my ex-wife then had to be the one to teach a lot of those values. Um, so family is most important to me, and above family is doing what I know the Lord wants me to do,
Mm.
and trying to teach my kids in that same manner. I am fortunate that 2 of my kids, and I have 4, 1 boy, 3 girls, 2 of them are on the same path as I am as far as serving the Lord. The other 2 are kind of like out there doing their own thing. And those 2, by the way, both of them don't, neither one of them have children. So
Mm.
the other 2 with children are on the right path. The other 2, and they're girls. The 2 girls, the middle 2 girls, they're just out doing their own thing. So I support them. One of them just called me just now, but she's at work anyway. But yeah, so I like giving back, teaching, uh, and sharing the good news of the word,
Mm.
and trying to line my life up so that uh, I'm not just talking the talk, but walking the walk as well.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, that's my passion. I told you once I was a deacon in the church and did a whole lot of stuff for the church. So I decided not to take a job that was going to give me 6 figures when I got out, so that I can help my daughter, and then devote all my other time to the church. So that's what that was my passion.
Hmm. So I think like it's been great just listening to you guys talk, right? I can definitely, I mean, even through the screen, right? I can feel the energy and the bond and the passion and just the cohesiveness of who you are as individuals, but then also like what makes you guys a group, right? And it definitely seems like a lot of it is very centered on the spiritual journey, right? And how you have come to be who you are, and how you overcame some things. And I definitely resonate with that a lot. I myself went through like a spiritual awakening, enlightening moment. I don't know what you want to call it, but something like that, right? And and as maybe disastrous and heartbreaking this pandemic has been for others, this has probably been a blessing in disguise for me. And I think this is, this platform that we're doing right now has been one of those blessings. So I definitely understand where you guys are coming from when speak in that way about like your faith and your commitment and that guidance and being led, by the Lord. So thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
Um, so now that we kind of know a little bit about you all, right? I think we could kind of get into it, right? And in a sense of speaking from maybe more of a veteran's perspective. So me being in my field, I'm often like, what's the research? What's the facts? What's the statistics, right? And that's all great. It's great.
Mhm.
Um, but I want to know, how do you guys feel, right? As, Black men, and then men, and then veterans as well, about, the particular risk of experiencing traumatic events, and maybe developing trauma symptoms, or mental health difficulties, family issues, and stuff like that. So I want to know, maybe like, how do you digest this aspect of military veterans facing particular risk in experiencing of traumatic events, and how do you make sense of that for yourselves?
Well, Janae, I'm glad you asked that question, um, because there's a sense of, when we talk about post-traumatic stress,
Hmm.
and you talk about other things, when it actually comes to veterans, uh, there are somewhat of a lot of differences. You know, a lot of people think if you got issues that they're all uh, post-traumatic stress related, and some of them are not. I
Absolutely.
give, a case in point. Uh, I let's say the mental side of the house, when it comes to a veteran, and I'm talking based off of my experience, are probably totally different from, Malcolm and Edward. Mine's probably was more internal when I was a part of the Army, dealing in a particular aspect when I was heading to war, and then returning to war, returning from war. And I use a good case in point, you know, prior to me heading to war, with the Army National Guard, I was working in the federal government, and the salary was much substantial than I was going to get paid, going overseas with the military. However, um, my colonel did have the opportunity to make a difference by double slotting me at a higher grade in order for me to uh, come out evenly salary wise. Because you got to remember, I'm going off to war, I still have a family who needs to have that same uh, lifestyle, and I need to provide, that same economic salary differences, and I think this was one of the first time, and at this time I was a chief warrant officer, and I was the executive officer. So I was that guy to lead from the front, which was the mobilization officer as well. And I just wanted to get a promotion so I can feed my family, and which what I thought would be something relatively easy, because it's more of, okay, yes, we can do it. But it was denied. And when it was denied, I asked why. And the rationale was that the full-time individuals were double slotted already, you know. And then that takes another turn, and I'm more like, okay, can we unslot one of them until I return, and then I'll give it back, and meaning that I'm the one going to war. They aren't. They were staying in the rear, you know, and needless to say, it was denied still. So with that alone, going overseas with that notion, having to think about that, and not only that, getting over there overseas and dealing with, other issues, you tend to, develop post-traumatic stress, you um, so I didn't accept that well, and I identified it with myself as having problems, particularly when I got back still. I was bitter along with, some other things that was going on over there as well, because I did have one of my soldiers that was actually in my unit who separated and went to another unit, and he was KIA. And I was somewhat of that, or I was his advisor. At the time, I was a chief of police as well. And the young troops would come to me and ask me for advice on particular things. And this particular guy, he took everything I said to heart. And everything I told him to do, that's what he did. And, so, and then when we were in country, he was actually KIA in country while I was there. So all of this going on in my head as well. So yes, I developed some PTSD tendencies, and my problem was when I returned, being a part of management and being in the high directory, of making six figures, I was like, well, I can't go see psychiatrists or mental health personnel, now what they're going to think about me. So back to where I was saying, I was somewhat reluctant to get help.
Mm.
A year or two went by, and I started experiencing post-traumatic stress symptoms. And then one day I just finally spoke with some about it, and actually, started seeking treatment. You know, um, does it get better? Yes, it does. But, when you have a minority veteran who is in the upper echelons of his career, and let's say within the Department of Veteran Affairs, I'm like in that 1%, of where I work as a Black person who's was in charge, and then you still have to deal with the day-to-day rhetoric of being that Black veteran. So you guys just could imagine, the things that, I had to deal with. And yes, it does. It caused post-traumatic stress, and I wish I would have started getting help, earlier, rather than sit by the wayside of what, other people would think about me, you know. And I'm more than sure, I shared my story with my brothers and colleagues as well. And now today I let people know, hey, go get you some help early on.
Mhm. Do you think that because I think in this kind of time that we're living in now, where more people are speaking out um in advocacy, like in advocate roles of mental health, do you think that where we are now, if you were like if this was happening maybe when you first started experiencing those symptoms, right, and started noticing that something wasn't quite right, do you think you would have gotten help sooner and been less um maybe maybe less worried about what other people would think or say? Or do you think you would have made the same decision?
I think in hindsight, I probably would have um, gotten the help much sooner,
Mm-hmm.
but still, that doesn't change the fact of the views on how management would look at me
Mm-hmm.
as a person of color.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and then you, in reality, you still have to think about your family,
Mm-hmm.
that you support, and, your extended family as well. So sometimes you willing to go the distance for them, realizing that if you have a mental health disease, eventually, it would burn you out and then you would crash and then
Mm-hmm.
you won't be good to anyone.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
in talking with, my brothers, my friends, my brothers in Christ, you know, um, they propelled me. They propelled me in sight of, what was going on during my military career,
Mm-hmm.
and just advising me on certain steps to take to overcome that certain and I mean I'm gonna call it what it is. On the military side, I thought it was a form of systemic racism,
Mm-hmm.
that I was caught up in, at the time, and so I mean, so in hindsight, yes, it would have helped. But again, would it have helped me 100%? I can't say it would, because I don't know the person on the other end who's treating me. You know, are they treating me for the right thing? Because there's a difference,
But there's
between
that trust,
mental
right?
health and that trust
Mm-hmm.
and the PTSD component.
Mm-hmm.
As a veteran, sometimes we don't trust everybody. We want to trust, we want to identify with people who have been through what I've been through.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to open up to those type of individuals. Other than that, I kind of feel like, you don't know what I experienced, so how can you treat me if
Mm-hmm.
you haven't been through what I've been through? And of course, they'll tell you about their subject matter expert in that career field. And sometimes that doesn't work for us as soldiers.
Mm.
So,
That's an interesting perspective. I'm definitely gonna hold that thought for a little later, but I'm gonna hold that thought.
mm,
So I guess I'll go. So I recall you asking the question regarding what difficulties I went through as a Black man, as a man, and as a veteran.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, as a Black man, I'll say, and throughout my military career, I had to do more than my counterparts
Mm.
to be recognized, to be considered for the next promotion.
Mm.
Uh, and for me, that was easy because I was competitive, and still is. But yeah, so it made me feel good. Okay, so we didn't grow up around a lot of other races.
Mm-hmm.
So joining the military was an emotional significant event for us, because it was like, okay, all these people, and it's probably two of us and about 15, others. Uh, and now you're looking, okay, so do you got my back? I got your back. We trying to figure out how we're going to be able to survive in case something happens with its race. So we were taught a lot about it at home, but we never really experienced it until the military. Uh, I was fortunate that I didn't recognize, because I was ignorant to it to some degree, of being around uh, Caucasians, that there was some type of um, racism going on. I didn't recognize it. But what I did recognize was some of the NCOs that were senior to me, although I was 22 when I went in, they were senior to me, and it could have been maybe about 25, 26 years old. And I'm talking about my own color. That when I came in and started getting accolades and started doing well, and other people of higher rank started recognizing me for that, those that looked like me had a problem with it. That I was working for, they had a problem with it. And I was told, who you think you come here now, everybody like you. They don't like, I was the one they used to like. So we get it on both ends sometimes as a man, and as a Black man, we get it sometimes from the others, and we get it from sometimes ourselves, because it's that crab syndrome. I don't want nobody coming here to do better than me. I'm gonna pull them down. And unfortunately, this guy was in direct leadership for me. He was my supervisor, and I had to deal with that. So I had to go to the Caucasian white guy who was in charge of all of us to let him know, hey, I'm doing what you asked me to do, but I'm being penalized by doing that by my supervisor. And he had to interject for me because he knew I was doing right. Now the guy was just, it was just a jealous moment at that time. So throughout the rest of my career, I was competitive in everything I did. I fortunate to have a couple of Black commanders that was, on board with me, helping me go through all the things I was going through. I had a family I was dealing with at the same time. So as I went on to my military career, I made a point that I would not do that to treat anybody, no matter what color they were, in any way differently than what everybody else was getting treated. And when I say that, I mean also as females. There are a lot of females in the military that get treated badly because they're females. And as a man, and I didn't care if they were Black or white or Asian, whatever. As a man, because I had 6 sisters and I had a mom that I adored, I wasn't gonna let another man try to treat another female any kind of way. So I had to fight for some of them. When they couldn't pass the PT test, I made it a point. I'm gonna take you out. We're gonna go work on it, and you're gonna learn how to pass this PT test. I'm gonna teach you how to run, and I'm gonna teach you how to do push-ups and sit-ups, and I'm gonna train with you every day till you get it. And I did that for a lot of my different female counterparts, because I knew what they were going through, and those that were Black even had it even worse. So I was more of an advocate for treating people the way I wanted to be treated, as the word says we should do. I'm getting towards the end. As I got to the end of my career as a commander, I was in the position of that I had to use some UCMJ discipline, which is the military term of some discipline toward 2 senior NCOs that were both Caucasian, because they didn't do what they were supposed to do. And with me exercising my rights, what I shouldn't be doing with anybody, I was told I was being prejudiced by the command over me that were both Caucasian. And it was just that those 2 guys were Caucasian, that I was being prejudiced because I was trying to prosecute them for it. So I saw what was happening. I gracefully excused myself from it. I asked to be moved from that position. I was in command, so I asked to come out of command, because I've been in command for like 3 years or something. I've given y'all way more time than I should have. I was trying to do that for the soldiers, because I had got a bond with those soldiers. They was like family to me. So after that situation happened, I decided to move out. I got another job. My commander told me, nope, you're not going nowhere. You're gonna stay right here till we get ready to let you go. I said, nope, that's not gonna happen. So I called the colonel that I knew. He made a phone call, and I was out of there the same day. So it was like all that I'd done for the unit and for those soldiers, because of that race, that persona, that what they thought was racism, they kind of like kicked me to the curb. And I was a senior guy in that whole chain of command, except for my battalion commander. He was the only one that outranked me. But I had a sergeant major did not outrank me. And all other people that worked for me, lieutenants, all that stuff, they wasn't singing to me. But because that battalion commander and that sergeant major decided to support those two NCOs who were Caucasian, they left me out. And that was my first time experiencing racism as it was told that I was doing it. And it wasn't. So, I took legal steps, which, as it went on, it was all just brushed under the carpet. I gracefully left it alone. I prayed about it and went my merry way. As a veteran, and this is the end, when I finally got ready to retire after that, I had a shoulder issue. I'd been seeing a doctor for some shoulder problems. So when I went to, when it was time for me to get out, all I needed was to have this surgery and 8 months left in the military for recovery time period. I went and talked to the post commander, of course, who was also Caucasian. And he looked me in my face and said, Chief, you need to get that done when you get out. And I said to him, I said, okay, sir, know that when I get out, I have to go find a job. I can't go out and find a job and then try to get a surgery, and then I'll be out of my job so that I can have recovery time. He said, it's not my problem. You got to go. His deputy took me to the next officer. I don't know why he's telling you that. It's wrong. But all I got to do is I got to support him. So again, I was pushed to the curve again, where I had to fend for myself. So then I retired, got out, went home. And like I said before, that retirement and the fact that President Obama did that drawdown was the best thing that happened to me, because the gifts that God had for me came after that. I never had to work again. And I was able to take care of my family just as if I was working a full-time job in the military. I do what I want to do. I go where I want to go. I can help anybody I want to help. And it's not about the money. It's about the time and the service that I give to them. I too had to see a psychiatrist for post-traumatic stress. And what I liked about it, that the person was compassionate. They didn't have military career, but they were compassionate to what I was going through. And the gentleman, he told me we worked through some issues, we did some training, all that stuff. And when I went for the disability, that person said, well, you don't have anxiety, you don't have post-traumatic stress, you just have anxiety. So they changed it. And my anxiety was, that the woman said, was that you just getting out the military and now you're anxious, you don't know what's going to happen with life and all that stuff. And I look back, I said, okay, that could be a true statement. So I wasn't looking to get diagnosed with post-traumatic stress. I was looking to find out what is really going on. And when she said that to me, it hit home, because I didn't know what was about to happen. I thought I was going to be in longer than I was supposed to, but that got cut off like 3 days before it was time. So I had to get out. I had to go home then. So I got out, I PCS back to where my family was at, and trying to join in a family now with my ex-wife was difficult, because I had a lot of things in my mind, like what I'm gonna do, what's about to happen. I don't know. She's like, well, what you gonna do now? We're gonna be at the house every day together. So there was a lot of things going on that put me in some stressful situations, but I put it all in God's hands. And in doing that, my wife decided to leave. And we went to visit my daughter in Tyler, Texas, playing volleyball, who was in college then. And on the way back, we passed through Dallas. And she said, I think I want to live here in Dallas. So when we get back home and pack my stuff, and I want to move to Dallas. And I'm like, okay, we got a house, we got 4 dogs. We can't just get up and leave. But that's what she wanted to do, and she left. And that was the end of my marriage. And I think it had to do with the things that I was dealing with from the military, and she didn't want to have me involved with it anymore. So she just packed the bags and left. That's the end of my story.
And from just, I guess, what I read from some people that I know who are veterans, that impact upon like who you are as a person, and then that domino effect into like the family life, right? Because outside of just being a veteran, you're still a person outside of that who, wants love and wants a family and stuff, but undeniably they are affected as well. and oftentimes that severs relationships. It puts strain on relationships. And so I guess, where I'm going with that is just about, what is the real toll that puts on you as a person when you're trying to manage like the things you've experienced versus the things that are happening now in your present as well, right? Or and even maybe the things that are being foreshadowed for the future.
Right. So what I believe wholeheartedly in is counseling. I think it's for everyone. Uh, I like Christopher said it before. Usually, when you're doing counseling, your leadership will have people look at you a different way. In this time of my life, I don't care what nobody says about me. I go to counseling. I go to individual counseling, and I go to marital counseling because I think it's very important to talk through some of the things you go through. Because if not, a lot of those things you dealt with in the past will come up into your current and affect it. And you don't even know it's really affecting your relationships. You don't know it's affecting you personally. So I put a lot of emphasis on counseling, be it three types, like I said before: individual counseling, marriage counseling, and biblical counseling. Those are three counseling that I put a lot into now to help me cope with the issues that I've dealt with in the past.
I love to hear it. I love to hear it. What about you, Mr. Parker?
You know, I was sitting here listening to both of my friends, and I'm not really sure where to start, and definitely not sure where to end. But early on, you said that we can be an open and as raw as we needed to be.
Absolutely.
So this may not come in any particular order, but this is what I will say. I want to piggyback on something that Malcolm talked about, to some degree being ignorant to what racism really was. When we grew up in the Desire Project, and guys, you can correct me on this if you want, I remember one white student that tried to integrate into our school, and that lasted one day. I don't, and I could be wrong, but I don't remember any of my classmates that didn't look like me. All of my classmates were Black all the time. So when I joined the military, and when I get to basic training and I'm looking around expecting most of the people there to look like me, and they don't, that was the first culture shock. When I first experienced racism in the military, and Janae, this is going to sound crazy, it didn't dawn on me.
It probably won't.
Until many, 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 many years later. And while in my first unit overseas in Italy, I met a guy, and I kid you not, he had to have been Malcolm X's grandson. He wanted nothing to do with the white man, nothing at all. Didn't give him no kind of accolades, no credit. No, if you're white, don't even talk to me. He just didn't want to deal with him at all. And that was kind of, for me, standoffish. Let's give everybody a fair shake here. But in my first duty assignment, when I was in Italy, that's what I saw, as Malcolm said, coming from somebody that looks like me, but older than me, having to deal with issues with white people long before I came along. He was clearly 10 years older than me. So he had seen some things in his own life that kind of shaped him into who he was. That I think he was a bit extreme, yes. But personally, at my second duty assignment, this is when I first experienced systemic racism. And even then, I didn't know quite what it was. My platoon sergeant, who always made negative comments about a fellow NCO, my platoon sergeant was white, the fellow NCO, he was Black. And he always said, man, that guy's like a dumb as a box of rocks. And he would often say that, and nobody would really respond, but I knew it wasn't appropriate. So when he left to go on leave, the next person in charge was a white E6. His name was Sergeant Golf. I'll never forget it. He came to me and he said, Nasty Nally, which his name was Sergeant First Class Nally, is going on leave, and you need to be ready to go to the board on Tuesday. And this was Friday. And I said, there's no way. He said, listen, if you don't go to the E6 promotion board now while he's gone, you're never going to go. And I didn't understand that. And this is coming from the guy who's in charge now while the platoon sergeant is gone, a white guy. And he said, listen, if you don't go now, you're not going to go. I went. Thank God I did well. When Sergeant Nally came back, he came to me and he said, what is this I hear about you going to the promotion board? I said, yeah. Sergeant Golf told me to get prepared, and I went. And he said, and just like that, he said, well, I didn't think you were ready. And I said, well, I went and I did well. 198 out of 200 as far as the points is concerned. But again, Janae, I didn't realize it at that time. It didn't dawn on me until many years later. So with regards to the man aspect of it, it was all new to me. I had never experienced it. The environment in which I grew up was full of Black people, very few white people. I have to go back to my time after the military when I started to learn more and think more about some of the comments that were said. When I was stationed at Fort Campbell, Kentucky, I had received orders to go to Korea. Well, nobody wants to go to Korea, number one, because it's a 1-year tour without your family or a 2-year tour with your family. My wife wasn't going. I knew that. So I figured, let me stay in my own unit. And by then, I was in the military for 5 years. I had already got promoted to E6. As far as I was concerned, being an E6 in 5 years, I was well on my way to a very promising military career. But I'll never forget Sergeant Major Cook. I asked specifically, Sergeant Major, I'd like to stay here because I want to deploy with this unit if in fact we go to Iraq. This was in 1988. This was when it was all started. And I'll never forget, I'm telling you, even today, it was just like yesterday. It's the way in which he said to me, son, you have orders to go to Korea, and that is exactly what you're going to do. You can't stay here. You are just a dud, period. That's it. And again, not quite understand, because I had excelled in so much when I was at that unit, did everything that was expected of me, rose above, went to school, wherever they told me to go, went to airborne school, anything I could do to try to make myself better. And then for him to say that, again, didn't dawn on me until years later. I said, okay, I'm seeing now what all of this racism is. And when it was 13 years into service, 12 years into service, I got a letter saying I was part of the drawdown. Well, I wasn't the only one that was a part of the drawdown. There were several other soldiers in my unit. For whatever reason, we were caught up in the drawdown. Well, when it was time for me to get signatures from the colonel and the general to recommend that I stay, because I thought I was still doing relatively well, my superiors were all white, and they all said, no, it's a drawdown. We're only looking for the best of the best. So I went back over all of my evaluation reports, and I couldn't find anything to distinguish me as not being one of the best. But nevertheless, No one signed off on it. And it was time for me to go after 13 years. Totally devastating. Chris and I talked about it for the longest. Malcolm and I talked about it for the longest. Couldn't seem to understand how or why, but nevertheless, it is what it is.
So,
with regards to the veteran aspect of it, because while in service, there were some incidents that occurred that I thought certainly caused some sort of post-traumatic stress. And when I first went and spoke to a psychiatrist and a psychologist, they all blew me off and said, there's nothing wrong with you. You're just not able to adapt. You're not in the Army anymore. This is the real world, blah, blah, blah. Look, it's just, it happens to every soldier. So you're just, there's nothing wrong with you. And I said, you can't tell me what I'm feeling. How can you tell me what I know I'm feeling, what I'm experiencing? At any rate, what they said went. Years later, I'm back in counseling. As Malcolm said, I'm a proponent of counseling also. And the funny thing about this is my counselor was a white woman, and even more so shocking, she was an atheist. Had no kind of relationship whatsoever with the Lord. So I knew then, I said, well, there's no way you can forget it. She doesn't love the Lord and she's white. You're done. Strangely enough, during our session, she asked about whether or not I was ever diagnosed. And I told her, no, I wasn't, because they constantly blew me off. And she said, well, they constantly got it wrong. She did a DBQ and an evaluation, sent it forward. Long story short, after hers, I had to go see a psychiatrist, and she happened to be Black. And in her report, this guy is absolutely fine. There is nothing wrong with him at all. And the reason why she made that comment is because after our session was over, I'll never forget this. After our session was over, I made a comment and she said, well, where do you go from here? Well, I was growing in the Lord, so I felt bold enough and strong enough to say, I am who I am now. I'm going to be fine in whatever I do or wherever I go or whatever you say or whatever you recommend. And I think that may have upset her, because she said in her writing afterwards that I had privilege to read that there's absolutely nothing wrong with this guy at all. In fact, he was joking throughout our process. So if I am loving life, loving my family, appreciating my growth in Christ, why am I not supposed to share that with you? And she took it as though there's nothing wrong. But even today, I meet with my psychologist every 3 weeks. We talk about a number of different things. She's open. I can approach her. She's white, extremely receptive. All of my medical issues, from congestive heart failure to being diagnosed with cancer in December, undergoing treatment right now every 3 weeks for immunotherapy to rid myself of the cancer. She's approachable and I can talk to her about it. But as Christopher was saying, there are still some who will say, there's really nothing wrong with you. And I'm not talking about health-wise. I'm talking about psychologically, mentally, the space that's between your ears. They want to tell you what you're experiencing, even though, as Chris said, they weren't a part of it. You weren't a part of the unit where my friends died that night on that helicopter crash. So you don't know how this has affected me, but yet they'll try to come to a conclusion and say, I don't know what I'm talking about. There's nothing really wrong with me. I've learned, Janae, systemic racism has been formidable in the military. Even now, today, with veterans, it's still present. The way they think about mental health, unless you're talking to your psychologist, people on the outside still tend to kind of look at you differently. My family has come along and they've accepted the fact that I meet with my psychologist and so forth. But if you're not part of my inner circle, then it's always kind of standoff. It's like, well, why are you talking to a psychologist? Is there something wrong with you? And we've tried to educate people over the years. Wellness is not just your physical attributes, not just your physical stature, not just the fact that you can run 7 miles. What are you dealing with in this space between your ears? That's an issue, but it's an issue that not many people want to talk about.
I first, I just want to say that I am in awe of all of you gentlemen and the stories and the vulnerability and the perspective that you offer. So you have to forgive me if I kind of stumble over my words, because I am trying to piece it together and I guess form my own sense of knowledge as well. And I think this may be what other people may be experiencing and going through as well, as they try to navigate through this culture we now live in, this culture we may have been raised in, and then the future of where we're going. And I think for me, this is why this is kind of so important for me to do in helping me kind of walk in my own purpose, right? Is to be able to highlight these areas, like you said, Mr. Parker, about how these are conversations that people don't want to talk about out of either fear, out of their own stories, out of disappointment, out of failure or feeling like a failure. But I feel like they are so needed because, you know, one of my main things is for people to realize that they're not alone, right? In this journey, that everyone has a story, everyone has a journey in that they take. The paths will look very different, the ups and downs will look very different. However, it's there. And it's a community, it's a conversation that we need to have. But unfortunately, not many people are willing to or want to. So I think, you know, for me, like, I want to know, like, coming into this field, right, from the mental health perspective inside of things, like, how do we do better? Because you know, my area of expertise is in cultural competency and educating non-minority providers to provide equitable and accessible services for members of minority communities, especially the Black and Brown communities. And so I think part of this is like how do we do better, and how do we make things more accessible or equitable, or even just to be able to reach someone who may not be willing to come and talk about it or share their story. You know, how do we do better?
You know, Janae, let me just comment on something that you said. Trying to bring it to the forefront for Black and Brown communities, for colleagues or people who are in a position to do better. I've learned over the years, they are sometimes in shock to know that some of the very basics, going to a gym, a membership at the YMCA, going to summer camp, they're in awe as, what do you mean you don't go? What do you mean Leroy does? Because Billy goes every summer. But But if we're not privileged to that, if we've never been exposed to that, it's difficult to get someone who sits here to try and relate to the fact that the people that you care about most, the Black and brown communities, they don't get to do these things. And for them, it's the norm. What, I don't understand how and why don't you do that? We do this every year. We go on vacation every year. We send the kids to grandma every year. They do this every year. It's not the same in our community. And it hasn't been.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, like, I found even just kind of preparing for this, but even in my training and my own experiences with diverse populations, and oftentimes being maybe the only woman, but then especially sometimes being the only Black woman in the room. We walk in with certain burdens and responsibilities on our shoulders that are often not seen, that people don't know, that we're trying to manage in the moment at times for the sake of who we're around, right? And so for me, it's often like mental health services provides that safe space to kind of take those burdens off, right? And help people understand that they can. But I think it definitely has to start from within our communities. And for hearing people like you all, so that people can feel represented, people can feel seen, people can feel heard, people can feel understood. So I think across the board we have to do better, both for the Black and brown communities, but I also think even for our veterans, we have to do a lot better, because there is a lot that you're dealing with. Like, I've heard Dr. Christopher talk about, being in management, or being at the top of his career possibly, but still worrying about the perspectives and how I'm going to be looked and treated for simply having difficulties, right? Or simply having challenges. And then I hear, Ms. Parker, you talk about like that transition, right? From being a part of the drawdown and going back to civilian life and being bitter and wanting nothing to do with the government, and or being part of a community that you served for 13 years, right? And yeah, I think it's so much that we could talk about, is so much that is a part of these stories that are just weaved together. But if you had to say something or give one piece of advice or motivation, for someone who may look like you, for someone who may not look like you, but may have experienced some of the things that you have, what would you say?
I would say, Janae, start seeking treatment a year before you get out the military. And I don't know how that looked because I didn't do it a year before, but I think that's more than enough time for when you integrate into the public transition, that you will have some education. You will be able to cope with certain things, and then you can properly, reintegrate into society. And if it's medication that you're taking, you would know how to, or if it's in that form of counseling, then you would know where to go and what to do. I think that one of the major components of the military is that they don't start that transitional piece in a timely manner. When we're ETSing, you only have 4 to 5 months, that you're about to get out when you make up your decision. And that shouldn't be the case. It should be some yearly training going on, even if you're not going to get out the military. you know, there are triggers, and those triggers are sometimes noticeable by management. And those are the things that management needs to report and tell them soldiers, no, I'm informing you to get help, and it's a chain of command process. We can do that, so that's my 2 cents.
Okay.
I'll tell you, I got about 4 points
Okay.
with how do we make it better and how do we do better? Because we can do better. But it's got to start internally. And I'll just start as a Black race. And then I'll take it even further as Black men.
Mm-hmm.
Black men are taught you have to be strong.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be weak. In the military, we had certain jargons that we would use for weak people. Weak links, and other things that we say, but in all actuality, as a whole, you are only as good as the weakest person in your team, because that person brings you down now. So you have to reach back and help that person up. So I would say we had to start it internally. We don't have to be strong. Let's do away with the strongness. Let's be vulnerable to get help. And as Scripture said, toward the end, I say, whenever you feel you need help, get it. I don't care where your career is in the military or where you are, your children, no matter where you are, when the signs are seen, get help. Because it's not going to hurt you, it's going to help you. But in doing that in the military, you have to have some leadership that has compassion for you. Because if not, they will hold that against you. And that is one of those things that if I want to pick 2 people for the next rank or pick 2 people for the next job, and I look at one has some mental health issues because I know he's going, the other one don't, I'm going to choose the other one because I don't know about her mental health. So then they're segregating us and they're using that against us. So leadership has to be invested in mental health, has to be invested in counseling. As a people, overall people, us, we have to know that it's not something that's going to make us look bad to others, and we have to not care if it makes us look bad to anybody else, because what we're doing is we're trying to instill something ourselves, trying to help ourselves. And for one, the last thing is for children. We have to be able to do the exact same thing for our children. A lot of times we have this thing, suck it up and keep moving. It hurt, you're gonna feel better later. Keep going. Don't worry about that. You fail, get up and keep on walking. You feel that somebody told you was fat at school, so what? You are fat, keep going. You lose some weight. We have those things that we tell our kids that affects them at that time and in the long run. So we got to get better at that as parents, as educators, as adults. We have to get better. And for this pandemic that we're going through right now, there are a lot of kids and teachers and parents that should be going to some counseling. The kids and the teachers have to learn how to reconnect back together now, because kids have been doing some things on their own now. Teachers have been doing this thing online now. Now you got to say, okay, I got to be in front of you now. Now I got to start dealing with you face to face and understand some of the things you went through while you were at home, understand some of the things you felt that you probably was alone now. You didn't have all of the people around you anymore in the classroom. You didn't have to be quiet to somebody else so somebody else can talk. Those kind of things that, we have, as a people, we have to put some importance on for parents, for teachers, and for children going back to school. That's how we help.
I love it. I love it.
I think the first thing that we have to do collectively, we have to put an end to the stigma of mental health.
Yes, absolutely.
We have to.
Yes, we do.
If we never get past that, you'll have this conversation with 3 more veterans 10 years from now, and the stories are going to be identical.
Mhm.
We have to get away from, man, that guy's crazy. And the way we do that, recognize that we're all different.
Mhm.
Recognize that everybody brings something to the table different. Your triggers may be separate from mine. What got you to this level of mental health is not the same that got me. If we are unable to recognize the difference, it's always going to go under that same category, CRAZY, when that's not where it should be. What if I just need to talk? What if I just need you to listen to some of the things that I have to say? I want to be of value. So in addition to getting away and destroying the stigma that's associated with mental health, recognize, equally make yourself available.
Mm.
Malcolm will come to me and talk to me about something. Chris can come to me and talk to me about something. But Janae, who doesn't know me, may very well want to talk to me about something. But if I come across as, man, this chick done lost her damn mind, where are you going to go?
Right. You're
Simply
right.
because I haven't made myself available to listen to you. And then in addition to being available, when I worked in the school system, I told my kids this all the time. I even tell mine here who are still hard-headed. If you listen, you will learn.
Yep.
If you listen, you will learn. There's so much that I can learn about you if I hush my mouth and I listen. But a lot of times we just want to talk, 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 talk. Oh, I can fix this. Oh, I can fix that. Be quiet. Listen. And then the last thing involves action. We absolutely have to do all of those things that I mentioned, but in the end, we have to do something about it. We have to be the one to get away from that stigma. We have to recognize, we have to make ourselves available. We have to listen. And then after we do all of that, say, you know what? Let me take your hand. This is what I think we need to do in an effort to help you. And if I can't, there are professional people who can definitely help you. And then again, the vulnerability. I've been there. I know exactly what you're dealing with to some degree, not to come across as, oh, I already know. I'm not saying that, but I too deal with mental health. So I'm here for you. I want to listen. I am available and I'm willing to help.
Mm. I love
And
that. I absolutely love that. Yes.
Janae, let me interject real quick. One other thing.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, you had your turn already.
Well, I know, but see, because I can talk and I can be quick, I can do it again. Mental health has been a stigma for many, many years.
That it has.
I'm gonna tell you the truth. A lot of people is not gonna leave their mind. The minute they hear mental, it's automatically gonna pop up. Something's wrong.
Right.
Let's change the word. My counselor has changed the word to therapeutic counseling. A lot of people, when you say I'm going to therapeutic counseling, I say, oh, okay. Most people probably gonna say, what is that? But it's not gonna be that. It's not gonna click real fast that Malcolm has some mental issues he's having problems with. He's just going to therapeutic counseling. So he's going to some therapy. When people think about therapy, it's something just to help you. That's all I want to say.
Yeah.
And I think, that's often a tool and technique, that, we as therapists, I mean, even as educators, right? Or even within the marketing industry, about if you change the wording, oftentimes you can trigger something to be thought very differently, right? And then if I can do that, then I can then have a better chance of then changing the outcome or the consequence of that initial impression or that initial thought, right? So if I change it from a negative connotation of what mental means, right? Then I have a better chance of you maybe listening. I have a better chance of you maybe acting upon it, or being available, or just willing to just be open, right? Just be open to the possibility that it could work. Right. I think so many times we get stuck in the what if it don't do this, and what if it doesn't work. Well, what if it does?
Right.
You know? And so I think I definitely agree with that. I agree with all of you on all of these things. And this has definitely been eye-opening, heart-opening, if that's even a word, but I'm gonna make it up today.
Go ahead.
That's how
Right?
I get down before they put it in there themselves.
Right. You know, for me and who I am, and how I have a different outlook and perspective on an area that I'm not very familiar in. So I want to say thank you, thank you, thank you to all of you for coming on here today and being open and being vulnerable about your journeys, about your experiences, and about sharing your stories. Um, and you know, I want to end. I can probably figure it out, but you know, for those who are just listening in and tuning in, I just want to know, what's your why? Why do you do what you do?
Well, I'll tell you my why. W.E.D. Du Bois said, I live my life as though generations depend on me, and I will teach and encourage my own to do the same.
Mm-hmm.
It takes us all to raise kids. It takes a whole village to teach a kid. That's my why, giving back to society so they would have morals, values, teach someone, bring them along the way so we all can be a better community for kids who look like me, who play like me, who want to be me. And that's my why.
My why is, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's the ultimate why. And it should be everyone's ultimate why, because the Bible says so. Because the Most High, who we all, if we all believe in, that is what He said to do. A lot of times there are things that we see because society say do it. If you get it back to the origination, the way it came from, most of it came from the Bible. And it's a biblical instruction before leaving Earth. It tells you how to do it. If there's nothing new under the sun, according to the Bible, everything that we see now has happened before, and there's a way to get out of it. And the word says, "It's my people who are called by my name will turn from their wicked ways and acknowledge me. I will heal their land." We got to come together as a people, stop tearing each other down, and build each other up. And the why is because Most High said so. We want to be pleasing unto Him.
I'm going to piggyback a little bit off of what Malcolm said, but mine is a lot shorter than that, even though I talk a lot. But Philippians 4:13 says, I can do all things through Him who gives me strength. Now, what does that have to do with why? Well, because if He said it, then I can do it. You are no different than me in the eyesight of our Heavenly Father. No respecter of person. If I'll do it for you, I'll do it for him or her. Understand and know there isn't anything that you cannot do. Recognize and look at the people that came before you, learn from their errors, correct it, and as Chris said, make the next generation better than the one before.
Well, you guys, I just feel blessed to just have this moment and this time with you. with you all. I thank you once again for coming along on this journey with me to being able to reduce the stigma and provide a platform for members of the Black and Brown communities to see representation, but then also for others who may not know a lot on how maybe to become better at understanding other communities and the other side of life that they too are not privileged to knowing or choose not to know, whatever that case may be. So thank you for joining me today. I look forward to keeping in contact with all of you guys. So yes,
Sure.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, appreciate you.
Mental health matters. 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 It 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 matters. Mental health.